Alright, welcome everyone to this video. I'm gonna talk about the sculpting in Blender versus how could it be improved without actually doing too much revamping, let's say that. Well, the thing that has bothered me in Blender sculpting is not the limitation of the topology, that it cannot reach a lot of millions and billions of polygons, which is fine. It doesn't really matter. When you sculpt smart, you can go around that issue pretty easily. The issue that has been bothering me a lot as a sculptor in Blender, like I've been sculpting for many years, and I got used to fast sculpting, as in just like sculpting without distraction, sculpting just straight to the point, just sculpting everything that is in my mind and just going with it. Blender has been stopping me from doing that. Why? Because the navigation, that's the problem of Blender sculpting. It's not the limitations, it's the navigation. So when I'm sculpting in Blender, for example, I want to maybe rotate the model, the view, because of course this is 3D. You have to see the model from different perspective every time. You need to move your view every second. Every change you do needs to be viewed in different angles. Well, the way that Blender does it, which is in my opinion horrible, is you need to press middle mouse button. I'm just gonna press it on my mouse. So you press your middle mouse button and you rotate. That is the problem, I say, because if you're like sculpting with a mouse, you are fine with that. But if you're sculpting with a tablet, where maybe yes you can have the buttons or you cannot have them, it doesn't matter if you have or not those buttons. But when you have that issue, that's when your sculpting gets a bit destroyed, I'd say. So, for example, let's change the rotation to a button that I have, because I don't have middle mouse button. It broke on my pen. So I'm just gonna put it to the right mouse button. Let's test it out. Boom. Yeah, it works. So the first issue that arises with the having to press a button on your pencil to rotate the view is that I'm sculpting, alright? I press the right mouse button and it does this crazy thing. I moved my pen too harshly. That is one issue. The second issue is that if I'm sculpting and I press the right mouse button to rotate, it still continues to sculpt. It doesn't actually rotate anymore. This basically means that if you're sculpting and you're clicking, nothing changes. So you have to actually rise up your pen, click the mouse button, rotate, and leave it. Now, the issues that you might have noticed right now is that when I'm sculpting, rising up the pen, it's all shaky. It's so unprecise. It's not precise at all. So when I leave it, boom, it moves again. That is a big deal. That is a big deal to me when I'm sculpting, because I'm trying to get precise angle I need for the sculpt. I need it to be very precise. So the only way to do this is to sculpt, rise up your pen, click right mouse button, click down and move, and leave the right mouse button again. That is a big deal to me because it distracts. There are too many steps. Your brain gets distracted and your sculpting flow goes away to the toilet, basically. You're just losing concentration. People might say, of course, why are you not using these gizmos over here? There is pan, rotating. Well, sure, those gizmos work very well with the tablet when you're actually using it for maybe, I don't know, modeling. You go into modeling and you use this. You do some modeling in here and just like, maybe for example move some polygons up. That is fine for this tool here. But when you're sculpting, things change. You cannot actually just use a tiny gizmo like those, because this right click mouse button rotation distracts you from sculpting. Imagine how much distraction can this give you, because you actually need to move your eyes to the right side, look at that, because you might click on something wrong if you're not looking, rotate and then accept it, and that's kinda a waste of time if you're trying to do it this way. Well, my proposition is to have a different navigation. Let's go to SculptGL. This is free, it's web-based, you can actually download it. You can activate the tablet compatibility, and let's see how this free website does it better than Blender and makes sculpting actually enjoyable. It's not the limitations, because it doesn't matter. The limitations are not a big deal, like I said before. It's the navigation. So I'm sculpting, clicking outside sculpting, clicking outside sculpting, clicking outside sculpting. See how fast that is? I'm not even looking where I'm clicking. I'm just using my side of the eye to observe and notice where the negative space is. I click on the negative space with left click, move, and the thing is, this is precise because I'm actually just sculpting, clicking outside and letting go. There is no shakiness, there is no bull crap like when I'm right clicking, which I can do. I can right click over here, and it's like the same issue as well in this program as in Blender, because when you're using a button to do something, it doesn't work. So you need to click outside the canvas. You need to do that. You need to click outside the canvas and just rotate this way. What about other stuff? There is panning, of course. For panning in this program, on this website, you press Alt and click outside the canvas and just do that. And when you're actually pointing towards a model, you press Alt and it does the negative of the brush, which is fantastic. You don't need to do anything special. And this is very contextual, as you can see, and Blender is well known to be a contextual program, so everything in Blender works in a context. So why shouldn't sculpt mode be contextual as well? Like, there is another method that could be used for navigation in Blender for sculpting, which has been suggested to me, and I've tried it out, and it still didn't work. I expected it to work because it sounded cool, but it actually didn't. So the other solution to this in Blender is to emulate 3 mouse button. So the 3 mouse button changes your mouse hotkeys a little bit. So for rotation, instead of actually clicking right click, you can press right click or middle mouse button depending on what you said, but you actually can press Alt and drag. You can Alt and left click, and it doesn't do it for some reason. Interesting. Did I change something else in here? Map. Right mouse. Let's keep it back to middle mouse button. Let's see. Yeah, okay, now it's working. So when I'm sculpting, I can press Alt and left mouse button. So I'm clicking Alt and clicking on anything. I'm just clicking on the tablet with my pen, and it's moving. Well, this is definitely a step up from the middle mouse button that is horrible. It's just not usable for sculpting. But this is better, of course. It is definitely better. Thing is, it loses consistency, it loses contextuality. And now, when I'm actually pressing Alt, instead of having the negative of the brush, I'm rotating. So, one might say, just change your control to do the negative. Well, how about the masking? Because when you go in SculptGL, you can press Control, and you toggle the masking. You just toggle it. But when you press Control, it uses the masking, and you can mask everything. So it's just like clicking Shift in Blender. When you're pressing Shift, it's just like it's toggling it. You release Shift, and it's not smoothing anymore. And here you can press Control, you're smoothing, release it, and you're not masking anymore. You can also press Control and Alt, and you're clearing out. Like you're just like removing the masking, and you're back to it. So that's fantastic. This Blender definitely should have this. Oh, this is something new. I can actually Control Mask, then I can Control Alt and drag outside, and it clears the mask. This is like ZBrush, which is interesting because ZBrush has got the sculpting, let's say perfect, because it's very consistent. It feels good to do. Blender doesn't have that, sadly, and it definitely should. So here you definitely need control to mask, and the masking that it has now, it's difficult. The way you can mask now is pressing M, and it doesn't even toggle. When you press M, it just chooses the brush. Yeah. So when you're pressing M, it just toggles the brush, but when you release the M button, it doesn't remove the brush and go back to the original brush you used to sculpt. It stays in the brush, which is... why? Why do I have to press twice to remove it? It is like in Blender 2.79 where you needed to press A twice to deselect, which it wasn't actually twice in the sense of you press it like a double click and it deselects. It was like you need to press A to select and A to deselect, So in the end, you actually just used it twice to just deselect, just to be sure that you have everything selected, and just deselect everything and stuff like that. And masking in sculpting basically does the same, and it bothers me quite a lot when it should actually behave the same as smoothing. I tried to go in the settings and change some settings, and it still couldn't do it. There is no way, as far as I know, to make masking behave as like the smoothing, as in just as a toggle. Just click shift to smooth, release shift to exit smooth. Let's get back in here. Let's release the smooth. So yeah, that's just my only issue with sculpting, and I'm pretty sure many people have the same issues. Many don't actually, because many people are just used to Blender sculpting, because people are used to different things, of course. So you definitely need to give the choice to use sculpt mode as it is right now, and use sculpt mode as it is maybe, for example, in Sculpt GL, which is very intuitive, very perfect for the tools where you don't get distracted. So I'm sculpting, I'm rotating, sculpting, I'm rotating, sculpting, I'm rotating. I don't even need to distract my brain from the activity. I don't have any issues with that. I don't distract myself. I don't distract my brain. I keep myself focused on the sculpt, on the shape, on the character. And the masking is also there to help me to get the right spots fixed. And it's fantastic. Many of you might say, since I've been kinda harsh with Blender sculpt mode, well, you might say, why don't you just stick to Sculpt GL and just use Blender for everything else, like animation and modeling? Well, yeah, I can do that, but the point is, it's not beneficial in general. It breaks the workflow. Because, for example, I think that this Sculpt GL lacks is when I've sculpted in asymmetrical and I want to fix this the symmetry. I cannot. I just need to bring this, export this file, download it from the website, go into Blender, import it to Blender, use the modifier to fix the mirror, or just go into edit mode and select one side and just use a key combination to make the mirroring. Which at the moment I don't remember the combination, but it is there to fix that. And that breaks the flow. It just doesn't work. I tried it once with my a dinosaur. I was making a dinosaur, and it didn't work because it was pretty fragmented, and I don't like fragmentation of the workflow. If everything in Blender was kept in one package, like sculpting was fantastic, as every other sculpting program that has basically what Sculpt GL does, you can basically keep all your work in Blender, do the sculpting, do the topology in Blender, do the rigging, do the skidding, do the animation, everything, rendering, everything in Blender, and just keep it that one package. Just do everything in here. That would be fantastic. It would be great. So I hope that Blender developers see this video, or even people that actually want to make an add-on or something. I hope they see this video and see what are the problems with sculpt mode that can be easily fixed, in my opinion, because this stuff is not a big deal in the sense that it doesn't take months to do. It's not something that requires to redo everything from scratch. It just requires to change how some brushes work and how the interaction between the mouse and canvas works. Which, I mean, why not? Just for the sake of consistency as well, it's fine. Because, for example, I'm also using the right-click select to do stuff. And on the left click, you can use left click to do a lot of stuff. You can click outside. You can put the cursor. You can select. You can do a ton of stuff. And also, this is very Blender-like to have, like I said before, contextual working, where you basically do something and that thing works only in the context that you're pointing to. For example, I'm pointing to the mesh and it does one thing. I'm pointing to this and it does another thing. So for that reason, I feel sculpt mode should have that thing of contextual sculpting, contextual navigation, sorry, where you just click outside with left mouse button and just rotate. Even as an option, even if it's not the default, just as an option, it should be there, because it's just the way that sculpting is performed very well. Of course, I'm saying this as a personal way. I've been sculpting for almost 10 years and I love sculpting. It's my favorite thing to do. I don't even like drawing as much as I do sculpting. Drawing is nothing compared to sculpting. And to me, quick navigation is important, because I like to bring my ideas down to the model real quick. without having to think about what I'm pressing, what I'm doing. I just like to sculpt. That's the idea. Obviously, there is, for example, Jan Sculpts, which is an amazing dude. Basically, uses Blender to sculpt, and he does amazing with what Blender has right now. And that's fantastic. That's amazing. But that doesn't change the fact that it is still pretty clunky, that Blender Sculpt mode is such a clunky mode, especially with masking lacking and navigation. There's a lot to be desired in Blender Sculpt mode. Obviously, Blender Sculpt mode might need a lot of work to do in the future, but the bare minimum, in my opinion, should be the navigation. If the navigation was good, it wouldn't be keeping me off, because at the moment, Blender Sculpt mode is keeping me off from using it just because of the navigation, because every time I'm trying to use it, it loses me. I cannot focus on what I'm doing. It's too difficult. But in general, Blender is good for everything except sculpting, in my opinion. And the only thing to make Blender work for sculpting is just the navigation, because that's the only thing that keeps a lot of focus away from the sculpt itself, and just like it loses me. Except there is another thing, the key combinations, of course, that sometimes are just kind of nonsense, like the masking, like I showed you before, where the masking is just like you need to press it once to activate it, use it, and then press it again, and you lose speed in that. Shift is like the perfect thing that still works as it should in Blender, and it works as it works in every other program, and that's great. I love Shift. Blender's Shift is like amazing. I use it many times when I'm like creating shape keys. I just use Shift, and I obviously use the mouse because there is no other way for me to use the sculpt mode without using the mouse. So even if I'm making shape keys and all that stuff, where you actually may need sculpt mode quite a lot, I still stick to the mouse, sadly. And that kind of loses some power that Blender might have. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I didn't come out too harsh, because you know, I'm just made that way. And I hope you enjoyed the video. So I guess hope something can be done with Blender Sculpt mode. So, and see you guys on the next rant video, I guess.